I'm Dr. Patrice Berry, licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. Today's case is a bit of a doozy, and I want to start with Beverly McCallum. I want to start with her daughter's testimony, show a little bit of her testimony, and then also the cross examination. And then, if we have time, the jury foreperson came forward and they had some thoughts. And I have not watched the juror, whatever the jury foreperson. I haven't watched that part yet. If you all have questions as we are talking, please let me know. Welcome to everyone that is watching. We are going to hop right into today's case. I wanted to start with a bit of an overview. Some people might know absolutely nothing about this case, and so let's get into it. Back in 2002, the victim in this case, Robert Caraballo, he was unalived. And so the allegation was that he was unalived by his wife, Beverly, and then another guy, and then also Beverly's like adult daughter, that the three of them were involved in him not being here anymore, and that he was placed in a in a trunk. So we have trunks like this. The trunk my mom has is like blue, but that he was placed in this like green trunk, and that his body was so trigger warnings for all the things, but that his body was burned, and he was found his remains were found shortly after they dropped them off back in 2002, but they had no idea who this John Doe was. And so this case is sometimes referred to as the Jack in the Box case. That's sometimes what people call this one, because that's what they kind of named it, since they did not know who was this person that was found in, I think it was like a grape farm. And the individual that found the remains, they did testify during her trial as well. So right after all of this, she went to Jamaica. At some point, she lived in Pakistan. At some point, I believe she ended up being extradited from Italy. And Italy would only allow her to be extradited to the US if the US agreed to not prosecute her for something that could result in the death penalty. And so they had to reduce the charge to second degree, and because originally they had charged her with first degree. And we will talk about the verdict. She's scheduled to be sentenced, I believe, in May. So, all right. Oh, like this whole thing was super sad, and really I wanted to start with the testimony of the daughter, because the daughter reminded me a lot of the testimony from Letitia Stout's daughter, Harley. She really reminded me of just a daughter not wanting to think the worst of the only parent that they like have a close relationship with. And a little bit of that is going to come out in her testimony. The other daughter, so the daughter that was allegedly partly involved in, like, I don't know if she's been charged. I know the guy had been charged. And I might show a picture of him a little later. Let me see if I can do that now. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I can share this. Share this tab. All right. So here is Christopher McMillan. He, I believe he pled guilty to the charge. The one in the middle is Deneen, and Deneen is Beverly's daughter. And this was a picture when Beverly was still in Pakistan at the time. I believe her husband from Pakistan, because she has a husband that's missing and they don't know where that husband is. That came up during her trial. And I was surprised that her lawyer allowed that. I don't think her lawyer objected when they brought in the fact that she's been married multiple times, and she's had at least two missing husbands. And one of them like was recovered, Robert, the one whose trial this was about, and then the other one has never, like, we don't know where he is, and so yes. All right. So let's hop right into the daughter's testimony. I skipped through a little bit of the front. They show pictures of the father and they kind of talk about the type of father that he was. He did have a criminal past, but overall, it sounded like he was a pretty involved father when he was able to physically be in her life. And so we're just going to start here.
Now, do you remember a time after your dad disappeared that you moved away from Michigan?
Yes.
Where did you move to?
Jamaica.
All right. Who went with you to Jamaica?
Myself, my half-sister Tasha, our mother.
And do you recall the Chris that we discussed actually being in Jamaica at some point?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Would this have been soon after that you had gotten there?
It was in the same period that we had relocated. I remember him visiting for a few weeks. It was a lengthy visit.
Okay. So longer than a week?
Yes.
At least a couple?
Yes,
All
a
right.
few.
And you indicated that you went to Jamaica. Do you know or do you recall how soon after your dad disappeared that you relocated to Jamaica?
It was pretty abrupt, like everything was happening very quickly. I remember just things changing from one day to the next. It was the first time in my childhood that we were near family. The first time I could recognize faces at my school. I had cousins that went to the same school. We, for the first time, were sharing holidays with extended relatives on my maternal side of the family. I thought it was finally like time that we were gonna settle down.
Okay. And you indicated that it came to an abrupt end.
Yes,
And then shortly after, you're now living in Jamaica.
yes.
Okay. Now I'm showing you what's marked as People's Exhibit number 25 and 26. Do you recognize, I'll start off with 25, that photo?
I do.
How do you recognize that?
My mom had a few of those with like pictures and memorabilia that she was collecting over the years. And like I said, she had a few of them. We moved a lot, but we always moved with those
Okay,
pieces
these
of
trunks
Yes,
that she had.
yes.
And I'm showing you what's People's Exhibit number 26. And would you agree that this is a close-up of the label that would have been on People's Exhibit number 25?
Yes, we
Okay.
moved to Rosemont, Montego Bay, Jamaica.
Okay, so when you left Michigan here, you actually moved to that address in Jamaica?
To Rosemont, yes.
Okay, and this would have been on your mom's trunk from when you were there?
Yes.
All right. How long were you in Jamaica, do you recall?
A few years.
And when you moved there, who did you meet up with?
We met up with Rainey, who was her long-term love affair, I guess you could say. And we ended up moving in with him under the same roof full time when we had relocated to Jamaica.
All right, thank you. And at some point, did the defendant and Rainey get married there?
Yes, as I recall it, we had moved during the summertime. By that fall, she was getting married to him, and my little brother, Gaetano, he was born that following January.
Now, at some point, did you recall moving back from Jamaica and coming to Texas?
Yes.
About how many years after you moved there was that?
It was a few, I want to say like maybe 2005, 2006 timeframe.
Okay. And when you came back to Texas, do you recall how you arrived in Texas in the United States?
Yes, I traveled by myself. My half sister Deneen and her partner at the time picked me up from the airport in Houston, Texas. And I recall spending the weekend with Deneen's partner while she went to the border of Mexico to pick up my mom. As I understood it, my mom was flying in through Mexico or to Mexico and then crossing the border that way to come to Texas.
And so sometimes you'll also hear this case referred to that the mom was a fugitive as well, because I think she was aware that the police were looking for her, wanted to talk to her. And at this point, they still hadn't identified Robert because Deneen, her half sister, is the one that reached out to the police saying that she thinks the remains that were found in 2002 that it was Robert.
All right, thank you. Now, you moved back to Texas. This is sometime in 2005, 2006.
Yes.
Who are you living with?
We were staying with Deneen until we got back on our feet.
Okay.
My mom got a place that we all fit in.
About how long did that take? Do you recall?
I don't recall.
Okay. And at this point, it's been a couple of years since you've seen your father.
Yes.
Did you ever ask your mom if she'd ever heard from your dad?
I pretty much was a little brown girl being raised by everyone with different color than me. So I had those moments of wishing that my dad was still here, that somebody that looked like me was there. So I know it came up a lot in my childhood, and every time she would just kind of scare me away from the topic of like, if he found out where we were, he'll steal you from me. You never want to see me again. Is that what you want? You know, things like that.
And that mind control, like, so at this point, the mother is aware that he is deceased and she's turning it, in my opinion, she's turning it on the child to be like, for the child to be afraid of him, that he's the monster, with the child not understanding like what mom had done and like
Or like, if I was to be disciplined or something, she'd say like I should send you to go live with your dad so he could, you know, take care of you, or like as if he'll be more hard on me with the disciplining compared to her.
So it's safe to say that your mom kept up this story of your dad.
this is the defendant. So, and they're going to bring up the fact that back in 2002, because at this point she's in a wheelchair and she has mobility issues. She seems to be kind of like medically frail. And the daughter is going to say that back in 2002, her mom did not have mobility issues. And the mom is going to admit to the daughter that something happened, but she's going to she's not going to tell her the whole story. So the way that the police put it together, and Chris, the other defendant, they were tried separately. So Chris, the other guy that was also charged with this crime, the story that he tells is that they had planned to unalive him, Robert, and that they had orchestrated this whole thing, like this whole argument down in the basement. And it's a pretty gruesome, gory uh death that I will spare you all the details. But if you want to look into it more, please do. But it gets pretty gory. And so she is going to talk about when her mom did finally kind of talk with her about what was going on with her dad. And she is also just going to say like how difficult, like that she was kind of in denial about because the police had to coax information out of her at first. Because like this is the only parent that she had left, and she was initially protective of her mom. And she's also just going to talk about how hard it was for her to be there testifying against her mom.
And she said that she couldn't do anything. Before she knew it, Deneen and her friends were heading downstairs to finish them off.
Okay. And
And so the mom is going to blame Deneen. So the mom is going to blame the other sister that she's the one that unalived her dad.
you stated, and she used the words Deneen and her friends,
Yes,
plural friends.
yes,
Okay, not Deneen and her friend.
no.
All right. And so she said that before she could do anything, Deneen came down on her own. Did she tell you that she yelled up? Did she tell you that anything or any detail of what happened?
No.
Okay, did you ask her?
No.
Are you just listening at this point?
Yes.
Okay. And at that point, she told you Deneen finished them off. Did she mention anything about why she didn't call for help afterwards?
She just said that before she could do anything, Deneen and her friends were coming down the stairs to finish them off.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you recall a time in your life, in your interactions between the defendant and Deneen, that Deneen would do anything without Beverly's prompting?
She would never. She always ran things by my mom or knew that she would be in big trouble if she did anything against my mom.
Because the mom is going to try to tell a story that it was all Deneen's fault, and the prosecution is making Beverly to be that she was kind of the one orchestrating everything, and that she's definitely at fault. But yeah.
My mom was always in full control over the things that directly affected her.
So does that story make any sense to you?
Now that I think about it, no.
But still, your mom told you that she hit your father in the head with this crowbar.
Yes.
But then she blames everything else on Deneen and their friends.
And that's so odd because she's saying that so the mom is going to testify, and I have that part queued up, and we're going to watch that part. But she's going to say that like Robert was trying to attack her, and she like accidentally hit. Like the story she tells makes no sense. It does not make any sense at all.
Yes.
Would that be safe to say? Now, would it, you indicated that this would have been about March 2015 that she told you the story?
Yes.
And you would agree that it wasn't until October of 2016 that Maltby and Detective Donker didn't show up at your house?
They showed up the following year, October 3rd, 2016.
Okay. So you're sitting on this info from March until the next year, October. Would that be safe to say?
I was.
Okay. And at this point, why didn't you tell anybody?
I had a conflicted relationship. I leaned on denial. My mother, she was the only parent I had, the only family, the only consistent family. I've always just wanted family.
So that part, my heart just broke for her, and she is just going to continue to talk about how difficult it is for her to be there talking about this. And so much of her testimony was reminiscent to me of Harley's testimony, when Harley's just talking about like being in denial, not wanting to think that her mom could do what, she was found guilty of doing to her little brother, to Gannon. And like there were just so many similarities. I do hope that she's received some therapy, and the way that she's talking makes me think that she has done her own work, that because to me she's speaking about this from like a place that you can tell is still healing, but it's not this gaping open wound that like nobody's, that she hasn't really talked about or processed through this. And so I'm going to play a little bit more of this, and then we're going to switch over to Beverly.
And would you agree it also took the detectives a little bit during the interview to try to get this out of you as well?
Yes, it was towards the end of the interview that I actually worked up the courage to share it with them.
Okay. Now, is this something that's incredibly hard for you today?
I'm sorry?
Is this something that's incredibly hard for you today?
Yes.
And is this something that even now, to talk about this in front of a jury with your mom in the room is still painful?
Very.
Okay. But does that change the fact that she told you this?
No.
Okay. And so she admitted to you that she knew what happened to your dad this entire time. Would it be safe to say?
Yes.
Yet she still maintained that same story to you, that your dad took off to Canada your entire life, led you to believe that.
She told me the same story over and over again.
And how painful for your mom to tell you that your dad abandoned you and left you and because if I was in the child's shoes, I would be thinking that my parent didn't want anything to do with me, or like, what did I do? Or like, I would be all in my head about this. And really it was mom the whole time. And ugh, ugh. And that the mom knew exactly what happened to him, and that she would use that almost as a manipulative, this bargaining chip of like, if you don't get it together, I'm going to send you to live with your dad, like knowing that her dad is deceased. I cut out the part where she talked about going to her paternal grandmother's funeral. And that's when things just kind of started to not make sense. And because she was upset because her dad wasn't there. And she's like, why would he miss his own mother's funeral? And it's my understanding sometime after that, that's when she learned the truth. So Beverly is going to tell this story about what happened on the stairs in their basement, and we're going to listen to it. Her style of talking, there are going to be times when she talks very, very soft, where even the judge has to ask her to speak up, or the judge has to get her to say something again. And the prosecutor is going to call that out. The prosecutor is going to be like, are you just doing this for the jury? Like, that's what the prosecutor is going to say. And so let's go back. So before I go back, Kelly, so there are sometimes victim advocates where people can sometimes request counseling, and it depends on the jurisdiction, it depends on the resources and tools that are available for victims. I know in my area, sometimes there are different agencies that sometimes provide free therapy for the victims of violent crimes. And so let me go on ahead and start playing Beverly's testimony.
And on those,
Okay, so Beverly decided to testify, and we're going to start with the defense asking her questions. So this is her lawyer asking her questions. That's what we're going to start with. and then we're going to get to a little bit of her cross-examination.
Stairs?
Ah,
Okay. No?
And then circle an area where you
Okay.
can be a bigger circle than that.
Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. I think around here is safe, saying that that is pretty accurate. That's as far as I would go.
Okay.
And on those stairs,
One second, Beverly.
okay.
So you're saying this second dot you put up here, that's the stairs, that's as far as down in the basement as you got?
Yes, that's as far as I would know.
Okay. So you got there, and then what did you say happened?
Then at that point, someone grabbed my right ankle.
Okay, do you know who that someone was?
And not until I kind of lost my balance. In the motion, there was a strange tool about, I don't know, about maybe this high.
For the record, I guess Ms. McCallum is showing a length of about 12 or 14 inches.
Yes,
Let me ask you this.
around this high.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you know what a crowbar is?
Yes, I do know the crowbar is.
Okay.
That's what you use for the tire?
I don't know
I
what a
guess you
crowbar.
could, but generally speaking, was that a crowbar?
Maybe I don't know what a crowbar is.
Okay.
I don't think it was a crowbar.
Where was this? Where was
No,
this
it wasn't a
item
crowbar.
when you saw it?
It was sitting on this, one of this stair.
Okay. So it was just laying on the stair treads.
And it was a strange, I remember looking at it for a second, and I thought about it many times after that. And it is some kind of a strange wood piece with something tied to it.
Okay. So you picked that up, and what did you do with it?
When I lost my balance, I remember I was leaning forward. I grabbed this. There's no handle there. There's no handle on the stairs. This is all open. The piece of wood that they showed before was not there. It's clear. Okay, so it's just a step clear. I reached down and I swung back, and
Okay, let me stop you there. So you swung back behind you?
yeah,
That makes no sense. It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm going up the stairs and I reach for this tool. Somebody's grabbing at my ankles. I don't look to see who's grabbing at my ankles. I don't say to stop, but I somehow swing my arm back and just end up. And even if I did accidentally hit someone with something, what you would do is you would then call the police. You wouldn't. Okay, so I'm gonna tell y'all. So trigger warning for the details. They put a plastic bag over, and so Robert was. It's my understanding that he was then hit a few times, so he had blunt force trauma, and then that he was like I think that he was suffocated. Like this was a horrific way to go, and then they ended up torching his remains. And so what? I don't understand why she thought this would be helpful for the jury. I do not understand why at all.
yes.
Why did you do that?
I mean, it was like a reflex. It wasn't.
You need to speak up.
Oh, she's also, to me, trying to make herself the victim in this. Like, she's trying to make the jury feel bad for her. Like, oh my gosh, I accidentally hit him. And to me, this feels like an act, like a story that she's telling. It does not feel truthful to me. If I was on that jury, I would be looking like that. It wouldn't make any sense to me. It just wouldn't. And so I think we will have time to get to what the juror said. We'll definitely cover some of that.
Ma'am.
It was like a reflex. It was not intentional. It wasn't just something I thought about.
Okay.
I don't know why I did
Did
it.
you make contact with anybody?
Obviously, I hit Robert in the face,
Where about in the face did you hit Robert?
somewhere around the cheek area.
Okay.
somewhere around
What did you do after that happened?
I mean, I was looking and he had come like on this. I was looking here. He was standing here and his face was here. He was leaning.
So are you suggesting his face was leaning into the stairwell of the staircase?
I mean, I don't know how to explain this.
Well, let me ask you this. You said that rail, or that there was nothing there along that right side?
No, there was
It was,
nothing
was
there.
it wide open?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you're saying there's nothing there to obstruct your,
No, there was nothing there at all.
okay, all right. And you hit Robert. What did he do?
I mean, he started yelling at me, and he was talking, obviously another language, and he told me like, just go upstairs. But his face was bleeding, the side of his face.
Okay, so he was angry because you hit him.
Yeah. He told me just.
Did he-
I mean, I don't want to cuss, but he cussed me.
That's
out.
okay, but we're not gonna do that, okay?
No.
So did you hitting Robert with that instrument, did that cause him to collapse on the floor or anything?
No.
Okay. What did you, after Robert indicated he wanted you to go upstairs, so what did you do then?
I went upstairs. I remember I put the food in the refrigerator, and I went to lay down in the bed. I checked on the girls. The girls were nearly asleep. They were really going down.
Okay, let me stop you there. This has been something you talked about a little bit during this trial, but are you naturally left or right-handed?
I'm left-handed only.
Okay, so when you swung that instrument, with what hand did you swing it?
My right hand.
Okay.
And to me, she keeps looking at the jury to see kind of, and this is just my thoughts, my opinion, that she's looking at them like, how is this coming across? How is this going? I want to get to the cross-examination. She's going to be very adamant that she did not unalive Robert. Like, she's going to be very adamant about that. I think the prosecution did a pretty good job on the cross-examination, and so I'm just going to play a little bit of this just so you can get a feel of it. And the fact that Beverly blames her daughter Deneen and her friends, it's just that's odd to me. And I don't think she talks about Chris at all. And Chris is in jail. Like, Chris admitted to his role in all of this. And Chris testified in her trial against her.
Now,
For the
Cicely testified that when she was growing
Cicely is the daughter that we saw her testimony. That's Cicely.
up and you was the mom, you were in charge. There was no kidding around. Fair to say?
No.
No, that's not fair to say.
No.
So the
You're
quietness that you provide today, is that how quiet you speak all the time, or is that for the jury
No,
today?
absolutely not. I do not speak quietly.
But you're doing it today.
I mean, I'm very. I'm trying to speak.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to speak to them the way that I think they need to hear me. I mean, I don't need to scream. I'm trying to be clear.
In reality, isn't it true that you actually knew that Chris was around as a friend and was portraying himself as Deneen's fake boyfriend as to not upset Robert?
Never. No, never.
And in those couple of months before Robert just all of a sudden came up, not there, isn't it also true Robert didn't even sleep in the bed with you?
Wow. That's not true.
So if Cicely were to come in here and say that for the couple of months before her father actually ended up being missing, he no longer stayed in your bedroom
She can never say
because
that.
he didn't want anything to do with you.
No.
Isn't that true?
No.
Isn't it true that the only reason he was there was to actually be there for his child, Cicely?
No.
That makes sense.
So if Cicely came in and testified to that, that'd be a lie as well.
Yeah, she would never testify to that.
Oh, she wouldn't.
No.
What if she did?
Bring her.
I'm sorry.
Bring her.
You claimed you worried about your daughter's mental health, but your answer today is, well, bring her.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a mother who actually cares about her daughter's
You are
mental health, does it?
you are asking her to lie. That is a lie. That would be a lie.
Well, no, actually, we ask people to actually take the truth on it, tell the truth on
Okay,
this.
but she wouldn't say that. It would be a lie.
Well, then let's talk about the truth that you've decided to expound today.
Okay.
So your testimony is, and if you'll put that first photo up. Your testimony is that on the day that Robert goes missing, he goes to his basement, which he does all the time, correct?
Yes, sir.
But on that day, you've sent Deneen and Chris down to talk to him because Robert's upset.
I didn't send them down there.
You didn't send him down.
No.
Did you not just say on direct that you said, Deneen, if you want to deal with this, you better deal with it today?
Yeah, she needed to talk to him today.
Talk to him.
Somebody brought up a good point. So, Kate, I do believe that the jury did not, I don't think the jury saw her, or like maybe when she was like, the jury didn't see, I think like by the time the jury came in, she was already seated. So I don't think the jury saw that portion. And then, because this happened back in 2002. And she admits to using alcohol during that time. I think there are allegations of some illegal substance use as well, and that her ability was different. That's what her daughter Cicely kind of testified to, that her ability was a lot more back then. So, all right, let's keep it going.
Today.
Yeah,
And
she
where was
could have.
Robert
She
always
could
at?
have.
He was
She
in the
could have.
basement, correct?
She could have talked to him when he entered the house with the children. She could have talked to him when he woke up from bed. She could have talked to him anytime.
But it's just funny enough that he ends up in the basement is where Deneen and Chris decide to talk to him. Is that right?
I suppose.
And you being the matriarch of the family, you being the one that everybody is supposed to listen to, you don't get involved with this conversation. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
absolutely not.
Absolutely not, because now you're nothing. You have no responsibilities. It's all on Robert at this point. Is
I
that
think
correct?
you don't understand foreign men. I think you have a problem with that.
I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Okay.
When you are.
No, I don't believe I asked the question. Oh, okay, is
Okay.
not.
Okay.
So you have Deneen and Chris go into the basement to talk to
No.
Robert, or they go into the basement
Oh.
and you have no concerns.
Oh,
Robert is a man that you said was very stern. Is that correct?
yes.
Cicely said that he was very stern.
Yes.
But you're comfortable with sending Deneen and Chris
I
into the
didn't
basement.
send them down there.
You know they went down there, correct?
Yeah, they often went down there with him.
Oh, they often went down there with them. Matter of fact, you often went down there as well.
No.
So if I bring in more, well, who were the people that you said went to the basement with Robert?
Armin, Mark, Gina.
Gina.
Yeah.
So if Gina were to testify and say that
No.
you went to the basement as well, is she now a liar?
I don't think she could say that.
What if she did?
Then
Would that
she-
make her a liar?
yes.
So pretty much, if everybody's not willing to follow the words that you've just told the jury today, then they must be liars. Is that what you're saying? Yes or no?
I think everybody should tell the truth.
So do I.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that truth.
Yes.
So you go down the steps, and you
Yes.
say you only go down 4 steps each time.
4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Yes.
But on the third time, just out of nowhere, when you go downstairs, someone grabs your leg.
Yes.
And it's your testimony to the jury that it's a completely open area. Is that correct?
It is. Oh,
So
it was. Mhm.
So let's talk about the stairs.
Yes.
Now,
Okay, so I think we pretty much get a good understanding of what she's talking about, the story that she is trying to tell. And there are some great questions in the chat. So for one of them, the question was she there during jury selection? So even if the jury saw her in the wheelchair, because um during a break, I might be able to play that. So during breaks, they wheel her out. So I'll just show kind of after the jury leaves, they wheel her down. So let's see, because there she is. Oh, and there's a walker right there as well. But at this point, the jury is out of the courtroom when they're doing this. Anytime she's transitioning in or out of the wheelchair, the jury is not present for that. And so she might have some actual physical limitations. I don't know. Um, I think the testimony that Chris gave, and I think all the other testimony and her story, because even if she did accidentally hit him and then I don't know, like everything that happened after that just doesn't make any sense to me. And so she was found guilty of second degree capital M, and she did not really react when the jury read the verdict. She didn't really react. This coverage is from Court TV, and I'm just gonna play a little bit of this. And I have not seen this part, so.
Scales of justice in the case. Well, we have a very special guest joining us now. You just heard his voice announcing the jury's verdict. The jury foreman, Corey Sharrow, is joining us live this morning. Corey, good morning to you. Thank you for coming on the program today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Tell us, what was it like when you all retired to begin your deliberations? I'm curious, was everybody in agreement from the start, or did it take some work in the room?
We had a vast majority in agreement, but there was some people that wanted to talk some things through. I know I've heard a lot about it wasn't very long in that room. It felt like a very long time. We were discussing.
I think it might have, and y'all can let me know in the chat, because I saw closing arguments and I think the jury came back with their decision within a few hours.
Early that whole time, every question that anybody had, I made sure everybody voiced it. We all made sure each other voiced any opinions or any second questions we wanted to ask.
Sure. Corey, got to ask, what did you think of Beverly McCallum's time on the stand?
In my opinion, when I was sitting the seat closest to her, so when she kept turning to look and talk, most of the time I felt she was looking right at me, and I felt like it was a little uncomfortable for me at times. But I also felt that based on how she answered a lot of the questions and the way she deflected, I felt I'd say most of the jury, I wouldn't put it on them, but I'd say most of us felt the same way, that we didn't trust hardly any of her responses based on what we.
And that is so important. If you are going to testify, you have to be believable. You have to be seen as credible, and you have to be seen as more credible than everyone else. And to me, her daughter's testimony came across credible. Chris's testimony, and I didn't play any of Chris, the other defendant in. So he I believe he pled guilty, and his trial happened a few years before hers. And the jury could have thought he might have been trying to say things to get her in trouble. I thought the daughter's testimony was very, very powerful, and that's why I wanted to play it. The fact that the mom was sitting there lying to her daughter about her father and all, like, that's just, it just feels icky to me. Ugh, I'll keep going.
We were seeing as a jury.
Mhm. I bet it was uncomfortable, her looking and staring. I could see just watching it from afar the way she looked like she was really intent on making eye contact. Did you feel that way, like she was trying to hang on to eye contact with you and your fellow jurors as she was answering?
Yes, I do. I don't know if she was doing it to try to get sympathy or intimidate. I don't know what the purpose was, but I definitely noticed there was intent there to stare.
Right.
And I think it could just be that she's trying to connect with them, but to me, in watching her testimony, to me, it felt forced. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's good to glance over at the jury, but to just talk directly to the jury. And I know Karen, because Karen's in the UK, and Karen mentioned that people are told to kind of talk directly to the jury. For me, it normally doesn't go over well for defendants when they do that. And I don't know if it's a US cultural thing where, like, when somebody's staring right at you, trying to convince you of something, it can feel a little off. So most of the other people that were testifying, they looked mostly at the person asking them the questions, and they might glance over at the jury every so often. I think just kind of directing yourself to the jury a lot, from what I've seen, that can backfire sometimes, especially if there are issues of credibility that come up.
Right. Made it awkward for sure. I want to play a clip for you, please, Corey. This is one from Beverly McCallum's cross examination where she is denying murdering her husband. Let's watch.
You know he's dead because you were part of the people that helped kill him. That's why
I
you
did
didn't
not
do
kill
nothing,
Robert. I
correct?
did not kill Robert. No. That's not correct. No.
You knew about the explosion and you knew how it felt because you were standing there watching it occur.
Absolutely not. No. No.
You were part of burning Robert's body.
No.
Corey, what were you thinking at that moment in time when she was giving those answers and all those denials?
I was trying to, I'm as a juror, I'm trying to be impartial, but at the same time, based on all the previous answers and the way she just, seemed to react almost unemotional to it. I believe the prosecutor's trying to get emotion out of her to get her to expose any truth that might be under there. But I still felt like it was an act at the time. That's what I saw. That's what I felt. I can't,
Right.
like I said, I can't speak for the other jurors, but that's how I was feeling at that time. That it was still an act. It was a quick deflection. That's what it felt like to me.
Right. Corey, we have so many more questions for you. We're nearing the top of the hour. When we come,
All right, so let me see if they bring him back. Okay, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit.
Honestly, thinking back on it, I can only remember the things that I truly felt weren't truthful. So, as far as, only truth I think I heard was where they slept, in the house, stuff like that. How far down to the basement she would go when she would call him for dinner, that kind of thing. I don't think any of the actual important details of the case and the murder, I don't think she told the whole truth on any of it.
right, I'm with you, Corey. I got a great question from our wonderful viewer, Adrian, who lives in Scotland. We have Court TV viewers all around the world. And Adrian asked a great question on X. She said, she wanted me to ask you, when Beverly McCallum did admit to hitting her husband, for you, was that a moment where she might have implicated herself in the homicide?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yes, I believe, in my opinion, it was a poor attempt to cover up any part of the crime that she had, and I felt like looking at the prosecutor's evidence that they brought, the autopsy, all that physical evidence on how this crime took place and how he ended up dying, it didn't fit, and it fit too conveniently her story that would not really implicate her, but still have her hitting him with something. So I felt that was just way too convenient.
It doesn't
Corey,
make sense.
something that Adrian wants to know, I know I want to know, and many other viewers were tweeting about this when we were watching her live on the stand. The accents that kind of kept coming and going, the different accents, was that troubling for the jury?
I found it more humorous than anything, especially.
So I didn't play all of her testimony. I thought it was just me. I thought her accents, like at some points she sounded Latina, like she could speak Spanish. At some parts she sounded like she was speaking with more of an Italian accent. Like at different points it sounded like she was speaking with different kind of accents. And I thought it was me, and I didn't want to say anything. And because they do ask her like what her primary language is, and she does say that she speaks multiple languages, but okay. And Deacon Fatal, I'm going to get to your question in just a moment. I want to play a little bit more of this just to see what's here.
Watching the prosecutor get pretty annoyed with it, just because I was sitting next to her, so I could hear everything she was saying. But yes, I was confused where the Italian accent came from, because us jurors had no idea she was ever in Italy.
Oh.
All we knew is that she had gone to Jamaica at one point, and Houston and Texas at one point. So I didn't know where an Italian accent came from even. So yeah, I was a little shocked by that. I didn't have trouble hearing her, but it was definitely annoying and frustrating that she just wouldn't speak up unless somebody made her upset.
Sure. And Corey, you just raised something that's a really great teaching point. She was arrested in Italy. That's where she was arrested and picked up, and she was extradited to the United States to face these charges. And the jury can't know about that,
Yeah.
because that would then create prejudice. That
Yep.
would then cloud your minds. You can't know about that. So that's great that you didn't. And it was confusing when she sounded like she spoke Italian. Corey, I've got a clip I want to play for you. This is from witness number 1, co-defendant Chris McMillan. Let's take a look.
Deneen and Beverly wanted to get rid of him because he was abusing the kids.
And everybody is going to say he was not harming anyone. So everyone is going to say that this is not true. But this was Chris's understanding of why Beverly wanted to harm, unalive Robert.
And Beverly physically, mentally, sexually. Deneen told me that Beverly.
Okay, so some of his wording is going to get a little not so YouTube friendly. So I'm going to.
How did you and your fellow jurors feel about Mr. McMillan?
I know in that jury room when we were deliberating, McMillan's testimony was very important to us. Okay. A few of us for sure did not trust much of it, because we understood why he was doing it. And we felt like there were some inconsistencies in his story that seemed like he was just trying not to make himself sound as involved as he was. But at the same time, we had to look at how his story lined up with that physical evidence that we were given by the prosecutor. And there was a lot of things that matched up. And while we feel he didn't tell us the whole truth, we felt like there was some there that we could sift out, and we felt like that was enough for us. But yeah, overall, he wasn't very trustworthy for us, but just enough in the important parts for us.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought when I watched, and that's why I didn't play any of his testimony. It didn't seem. It seemed like he wanted Beverly to get in trouble, and I don't know. If I was on the jury, I would have listened to what he said, but I could see why they were kind of skeptical about his testimony.
Fair to say, Corey, that you saw corroborating evidence come out after his testimony through the other witnesses and the pieces that were introduced later.
Yes, that's correct. Yep, the
I want to
prosecutors
see what
did a
he has
great
to say
job.
about the daughter. I'm gonna fast forward.
But twice, Corey, tell us, please, what were the impressions that she left with you and your fellow jurors?
If I were gonna say, her testimony more than anything helped tip the scales for our decision. Cicely was extremely important. She gave so much key information that helped, paint the picture of her home life during this time and leading up to this time and after this time. And she was very brave, very strong for doing such a thing. It could not have been easy. I was sitting there right next to her pretty much as she had to give all these terrible details of her childhood and growing up. And, my heart went out for her. I felt terrible. But we had to look at it as well. She was 9 at the time. So, but we felt that the things that she could remember, we all remember huge events in our childhood. And I really felt that her memory and the questions they asked were about those huge events, not about, the little things that she might not remember. So we felt like her testimony was very important.
Corey, was it?
So that was why I wanted to share her testimony. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And somebody brought up the fact, oh, so Karen, it's interesting. To you, it sounded more German than Spanish. And to me, so German to me is more like the like German. I lived in Germany, and to me it just I don't it just sounded odd. It seemed odd. And the accents reminding of Leticia. I don't know how to say her name, but let me get to the super chat question. Okay, so I'm old, right? So what does INHO? In my honest opinion. There we go. I'm not too old. In my honest opinion, do you think the prosecution helped her to drop her mask? Um, I think anytime somebody testifies, the other side is going to try to rattle their feathers. The other side is going to try to make them look less credible. And I think overall, she did a pretty okay job staying true to the story that she was there to tell. Her problem was that she was still admitting to hitting him and not calling for help, not reporting it to anyone, knowing something bad happened to him, and not even seeming to care, and how that might come off to the jury. Like, it doesn't seem like that even crossed her mind. Now, the defendant has the right to testify in their case. She gives off some of those kind of those traits of somebody that wants to be seen as the victim, and I think she wanted to tell her story. I think she thought she could get the jury on her side, similar to an Alec Murdaugh. But really, her testimony, it doesn't sound like the jury found her credible at all. And the thing that she was admitting to, because she admits to hitting him, but she says that somebody else did the rest, which it didn't make any sense. And she denied being there for all those other parts, and I just can't. Um, so Darvo is that where the person reverses victim and offender. And she did that to her daughter. Her daughter, who is growing up feeling isolated, lonely, not really looking like the rest of her family, missing her dad, somebody that she loved and was connected to. And the mom, like, I don't know, talking about him being a horrible person. Because to me, the mom was trying to make the daughter think that her dad was a bad guy and that she should avoid her dad and cling more to her. Looking back at her life, she might feel like there was kind of this trauma bond with her mom, and that the love that she felt was actually kind of manipulation. And because it sounds like Beverly only showed you love if you were doing what she wanted you to do, and you had to do the what she wanted you to do, or I think she would withhold that. Those are just my thoughts. Uh, yes, definitely that isolation, but literally, like, there was no way for her to be with her dad. He was no longer here, and letting her think for all of those years. So from 2002, when she's 9 years old, to 2015, and I think at this point, that's because Cicely has her own children, she has her own family. I don't know how old, thank goodness, I don't know how old her children are or any of that, but I just can't. I think she's in the National Guard, I think, and it sounds like she's really trying to do something with her life, and I really wish her all the best. Often people that have been through difficult things, they often get into helping professions. I think of how Harley, Leticia's daughter, how she wanted to study nursing, how sometimes when people go through a lot, it can sometimes drive their passion to help other people. Yes, I truly do. I really do wish her all the best. And to me, that was the hardest part of all this, thinking that he abandoned her and that her mother is this saint that's like putting up with her almost. I don't know, like I just can't. I sometimes don't share the names of the people that testify, because like, she's living her own adult life, and to me, this is really about covering mom. Her testimony was so powerful, I really, really wanted to cover it and talk about it, because it's just, and I truly hope that, she can feel like justice is being done, and for the sentencing, depending on what happens, just how powerful those impact statements are. I always keep an eye on sentencings. It looks like they are going to make what's his name? It's Adam Montgomery. It sounds like they are going to have him be present in the courtroom for his sentencing and the death of his daughter, Harmony. And I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. If y'all have any other questions, thank you to Sarah and Deacon Fatal for being a member. I truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you. I'm going to go feed my kiddo. Saturday, I don't know what we're going to talk about on Saturday yet. If y'all have thoughts and ideas for another case to take a look at, I've been following the Daybell jury selection. And I thought the one person that had the really strong religious objection, I thought that was kind of interesting. And I definitely will be watching the Daybell trial. He doesn't have a mental health component, because Lori had the delusional disorder. I don't know if mental health is going to come up for him, but spiritual harm and cult like behavior and uncivil law, because I've been watching that over on Uncivil Law. And he was actually reading through Chad's books, which are like filled with all types of just, ugh. But he's been Uncivil Law has been covering that. So if you don't check out his channel and you want to kind of follow some of this, make sure to go over there. But I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.